Hi, I'm Valeria Gonzalez Alba. I'm a current student in Tech Milenio Toluca, and I'll be talking about the Cold War. I think a very interesting topic. So, what is Cold War, or what does the Cold War term means? A Cold War is a state of conflict between nations that does not involve direct military action, but is pursued primarily through economic and political actions, propaganda acts, or espionage or proxy wars waged by surrogates. This term is most commonly used to refer to the Soviet American Cold War. Now, with all of this, we're going to see which economic systems were used in that time, and they are capitalism and socialism. So, you're going to wonder what is capitalism and how it works. Capitalism is an economic system in which private individuals or businesses own capital goods. The production of goods and services is based on supply and demand in the general market, known as market economic, rather than through central planning, known as planned economy or common economy. It was Adam Smith who noticed that mercantilism was not a force of development and change, but a regressive system that was creating trade imbalances between nations and keeping them from advancing. His ideas for a free market opened the world to capitalism. Now, what is socialism and how it works? Socialism is a populist economic and political system based on public ownership, also known as collective or common ownership, of the means of production. Those means include to machinery, tools, and factories used to produce goods that aim to directly satisfy human needs. Socialism was coined by Henry de Saint Simon, one of the founders of what would later be labeled utopian socialism. Simon contrasted it to liberal doctrine or individualism that emphasized the moral worth of the individual wish list, stressing that people act or should act as if they are in isolation from one another. So, now that we all know what this whole situation means and what does it refers to, I'm going to show you a little interview that I did to someone about this amazing and interesting topic.
Hello, my name is Jose Carlos Gonzalez. I'm the uncle of Valeria Gonzalez and I'm 48 years old. So, first question. What countries were the world leaders during this period? During the Cold War, I guess they were leaders uh, in the United States and the Soviet Union. And of course, all of their countries have their respective allies that helped them to construct and to build the superpowers that they were fighting for. Why did the countries who were allies during the wars become enemies afterwards? Because the United States and the Soviet Union had different forms of thinking of economic systems, political systems, social systems between capitalism and socialism. So they couldn't agree what was best for the world. So they decided to become enemies, so that they can fight for being the best in everything they could. Where did the Cold War take place? The Cold War take place in in all around the world. For example, in the United States, in the Soviet Union, also in Cuba, in Vietnam, in parts of Europe, Latin America, etc. Because they were a lot of wars, different wars in different places of the world. What opinion did the general public have of the Cold War? Well, here in Mexico, where I lived during that period, there were a lot of different forms of thinking because people wanted Mexico was in the capitalist uh, section of the United States, so people wanted to be rich and people wanted to have jobs in factories and people wanted to be globalized in Mexico. So some people were a little bit scared of what was going to happen here in the country, or some people were happy. Uh, I also remember like the news from around the world, and for example, the United States, that was happening, the wars, Latin America, or also the Cuban society that was fighting against the power of the United States. And the last one, what type of weapons did the two world powers have at their disposal? Well, I both of the countries of the supernations were fighting against each other, not in a not in a military way, but they were fighting to be the best thing they could. So they were trying nuclear weapons. There were missiles in different parts of the countries or the allies countries. Also, there were missiles, and there were a lot of weapons that didn't need it to be used in a military conflict, but that was happening, and that was occurring in the Cold War. Thanks.
And just to finish this video with my humble opinion about the Cold War and two economic systems, is that the Cold War was essentially a confrontation between two socio-economic systems that was carried out on a level below open conflict between the major players. These two systems were more than simply ideological or economic, but a complex interplay on many levels. At one point, the Soviet, Marxist, and communist socio-economic system of a common economy controlled a fourth of the world's population, the so-called Second World. No one single country under this system could provide even a minimum standard of living for the majority of the population they controlled. Every single one of the countries was brutal dictator police state that suppressed individual liberty on every level. Every single one of these countries maintained control by murdering citizens who criticized or opposed their rule. In the 20th century, these countries murdered upwards to 5,000 million people to maintain control and shove their failed socioeconomic ideology down the throats of the people that they rule. So, yeah, that was my humble opinion about the Cold War, and I hope you enjoy this video.